One of the things we are watching closely at the state and national level are changes in health care. Here in Colorado, Republicans in the Senate are already taking steps to repeal our state health care exchange. On the national level, lawmakers have begun the process of repealing the Affordable Care Act. Governor Hickenlooper talked about both these developments and the changes he thinks these discussions could lead to when he sat down with Denver 7's Nicole Brady.
Healthcare, I think the president-elect has been very clear that he wants to, if he's going to repeal Obamacare, which he says he wants to do, but he's going to replace it simultaneously. I think that's very important that he says that and that Congress respects that.
Do you think that Colorado should wait and see what happens with the repeal or possible repeal of Obamacare before we make any changes to our exchange and our system here?
I think we should be very careful in making our decisions and not rule anything out or repeal something before we see what the new rules and regulations are coming out of Washington. Are they going to keep the national exchange? What does that look like? I think we're open to discussing anything. I know that the Senate president said he wants to repeal Colorado's healthcare exchange. Well, we've begun to reach out to neighboring states and say, should we have a regional exchange? Are there specific benefits we get by having a regional exchange and be able to be hopefully less expensive than the national exchange? Let's see what that looks like before we make final decisions.
So you've already indicated you might not be on board with repealing our exchange, but it sounds like you're open to looking at ways that we could do this ourselves more possibly and come up with something else even aside from the federal government. Yeah.
At a lower cost and maybe provide benefits that wouldn't come from a national exchange. I think we're open to the discussion, and I look forward to sitting down with President Grantham and saying, yeah, you know, what is the alternative going to be? What's the national exchange going to look like? Let's discuss it.
All right. You know, talking off that, you said behavioral health is a key issue, and you talked about homelessness, and that's a huge issue, of course, in Denver right now. What would your hope be for how we could solve this problem that seems to just be unsolvable? Treating the homeless population here, finding them housing, ties into the affordable housing issue. What are some solutions we could look for?
Well,
work for.
People forget, and this problem of affordable housing is national in scale, but it's especially where all those communities, those states where you're having rapid economic growth. You got new jobs, people are moving here to fill those jobs. What that creates, I mean, our affordable housing is the housing we had 30, 50, 100 years ago. And so what we're doing right now is building new housing as fast as we can. That new housing is expensive. So when someone moves out of one of the older housing units and they've gotten a raise or something, they go somewhere else, that landlord immediately raises the rent because he knows there's so many people coming here that will pay a little more. So we see this, I mean, really rapid inflation, 8, 10, 12, 15% increase in rents, in the housing costs in 1 year. So we're going to have to figure out some way to provide some subsidies to figure out maybe we build smaller houses and subsidize smaller houses so the rents are lower. Some of the resort communities are talking about tiny homes that are 400, 500, 600 square feet, but people want to live in them. I mean, people have to have a place to live. And certainly, if you have a rising homelessness, you end up with rising chronic homelessness. People who've been homeless for a while, we know that slips into chronic homelessness. We know that drugs and addiction, alcoholism, often mental illness, that's 80 or 90% of the chronically homeless individuals. That's part of why we're taking a sliver, I mean, a very small amount of the tax revenues from the marijuana sales and saying, all right, let's address this unintended consequence that we know is getting worse because of that legalization.